The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched vast and silent. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated sections, watching the center platform with careful eyes. War Primus Zalthuan of the Krethian hegemony stood tall, his forearms crossed behind his back in a posture that spoke of absolute confidence. His purple carapace gleamed under the chamber lights, and his voice carried the weight of 3,000 years of military dominance. "The matter of humanity is concluded," Zalthun announced. His translator device rendered his clicks and whistles into common galactic speech. "They have refused our protection. They have rejected the order we bring to chaos. Therefore, their outer colonies are now forfeit. This is not cruelty. This is mathematics." The council members shifted in their seats. Some looked away. Others whispered among themselves. Everyone knew what Krethian mathematics meant. It meant calculated destruction, acceptable casualties, victory by numbers. The Vexulan ambassador, a floating jellyfish-like creature in a tank of methane, dared to speak. "War Primus, surely negotiation remains possible? Humanity is young. Perhaps they simply need more time to understand the benefits of hegemony membership." Zalthuan's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "We offered them 30 cycles to reconsider. They used those cycles to evacuate civilians and arm their pitiful fleet. They chose defiance. We choose to respond." On Earth, in the deep command center beneath Geneva, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen watched the transmission with steady eyes. Around him, officers monitored screens showing every human colony, every ship, every defensive station. The news from the Council was expected. They had known this moment would come for months. "Admiral, the colonies are reporting in," his second in command said quietly. "New Harmony, Prospect, Vale, and Redemption all confirm their evacuation plans are ready." "Good," Chen replied. His face showed nothing. Inside, his heart was heavy with what he knew was coming. "Send the signal to Captain Moravec. Execute Operation Hourglass." 16 light-years away, Captain Elena Moravec stood on the bridge of the UTNS Indomitable. Her ship was humanity's pride, 3 kilometers of steel and determination, armed with the best weapons human engineering could produce. It was also completely outmatched by what was coming. She knew it. Her crew knew it. Everyone knew it. "Captain, we have the order," her communications officer announced. "Operation Hourglass is active." Elena looked at the star map floating before her command chair. Red dots showed Krethian fleet positions. Blue dots showed human colonies. The mathematics were simple and terrible. 40 human ships against thousands of Krethian warships. If this were a fair fight, humanity would be extinct within a month. But humanity had not planned for a fair fight. "Set course for New Harmony," Elena ordered. "Maximum speed. Tell the colony to begin final evacuations. We'll hold the line as long as possible." "Reezer 2s, Chake the 17." The colony parted. Her tactical officer, a young man named Chen, no relation to the admiral, looked up from his console. "Captain, the Krethian fleet approaching New Harmony numbers 117 ships. We'll have support from the destroyers, Phoenix and Reaper, but even combined." "I know the math, Lieutenant," Elena said softly. "Execute the order." The Krethians called their military philosophy perfect war. They had refined it over thousands of years and 47 conquests. Every battle was calculated before the first shot fired. Force ratios, supply lines, expected casualties, probable outcomes, all reduced to equations. They lost ships, yes, but only acceptable numbers. They lost soldiers, but only acceptable percentages. And they always won. War Primus Zalthuan had studied humanity's military history during the negotiation period. He found it chaotic and emotional. Humans fought with passion instead of logic. They took unnecessary risks to save individual soldiers. They refused to accept calculated losses. Their greatest military minds spoke of things like honor and sacrifice, instead of efficiency and mathematics. It made them weak. It made them predictable. It made them easy to defeat. In his command ship, the Talon of Dominion, Zal Thuan reviewed the battle plan for New Harmony one final time. First, orbital bombardment to destroy military installations. Calculated civilian casualties. 40%. Acceptable. Second, landing forces to secure strategic positions. Expected resistance. Minimal. Human soldiers fought bravely, but died easily. Third, system pacification within 18 hours. Standard procedure. He transmitted the plan to his fleet commanders and began the jump to New Harmony space. Captain Moravec arrived at New Harmony with 2 hours to spare. The colony below was a beautiful world of green forests and blue oceans. 2 million humans called it home. In 2 hours, most of them would be dead or enslaved, unless she could buy them time. The evacuation ships were already lifting off, packed beyond capacity. There would not be enough time to save everyone. The mathematics said 40% casualties. Elena refused to accept the mathematics. All ships, defensive formation Delta, she commanded. We hold this line until every evacuation ship is clear. No matter what. Her crew responded without hesitation. They knew the mission was suicide. They did it anyway. When the Crethean fleet emerged from hyperspace, Zal Thuan immediately noted the human ships in defensive positions. 3 vessels against 117. He almost felt sympathy. Almost. Begin orbital bombardment. He ordered. Target military installations first. Standard procedure. The Indomitable's shields lit up as plasma fire rained down. Elena's ship fired back, her railguns punching through Crethean shields with human stubbornness. The destroyers, Phoenix and Reaper, danced between larger enemy ships, their missiles finding weak points. They fought brilliantly. It did not matter. The mathematics were inevitable, but as the battle raged, Elena watched her tactical display and smiled grimly. Every second they held was another evacuation ship escaping. Every Crethean ship focused on her was one not bombing civilians. She was not winning. She was buying time. Humanity had learned long ago that sometimes survival meant accepting you could not win. Only that you could make victory cost more than the enemy wanted to pay. The Cretheans claimed to be masters of war. Humanity was about to teach them a different lesson. New Harmony burned. From orbit, the fires looked like scattered jewels against the dark side of the planet. Captain Elena Moravec watched through the view screen as her ship limped away from the engagement zone, hull breached in 7 places. Crew casualties at 30%. Behind her, the colony she had tried to save was dying. The mathematics had been exact. The Cretheans lost 12 ships. Humanity lost Phoenix and Reaper, destroyed with all hands. Indomitable survived only because War Primus Zal Thuan allowed it. A message needed to be delivered. Captain, final evacuation count, her surviving communications officer reported, her voice hollow. We saved 200,000 civilians. Colonial census records show 500,000 residents. Elena closed her eyes. 300,000 dead. 40%. Just as the Cretheans calculated. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. Instead, she opened her eyes and checked the navigation display. Set course for Prospect Colony, she ordered. Best possible speed. Captain, Lieutenant Chen said quietly. Prospect is already under attack. We received the distress call 6 minutes ago. We're 2 days away. They both knew what 2 days meant. 2 days for the Cretheans to follow their standard procedures. 2 days for the mathematics to play out again. Elena's hands gripped her command chair. Then we go to the next one. And the next. We save who we can. In the Grand Hall of the Crethean War Academy, War Primus Zal Thuan gave his after-action report to assembled commanders. Holographic displays showed the Battle of New Harmony from multiple angles. Young officers took notes on their datapads. Observe the human defensive formation, Zal Thuan lectured, highlighting Indomitable's movements. Note the emotional thinking. They position themselves to protect evacuation ships rather than to inflict maximum damage. They sacrifice tactical advantage for sentiment. This is why they lose. One junior officer raised a manipulator tentacle. War Primus. The humans destroyed 12 of our ships. Their tonnage ratio suggests they should have been overwhelmed in the first wave. How did they achieve this result? Zalthuan clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Desperation. When animals are cornered, they fight with frantic energy. It is impressive, but inefficient. They expended their missiles at 3 times the optimal rate. Their energy weapons burned out their focusing crystals. They achieved short-term results at the cost of long-term sustainability. In a prolonged conflict, such tactics guarantee defeat. The officer seemed satisfied. Zalthuan dismissed the class and reviewed the reports from other fronts. Prospect had fallen in 16 hours. Vale Colony surrendered without a fight after witnessing New Harmony's destruction. Redemption managed to hold out for 23 hours before the last defensive platform was destroyed. Total Crethean losses: 38 ships across 4 colonies. Total human losses: 15 warships, 6 stations, and millions of civilians. The mathematics were acceptable. The campaign was proceeding according to prediction. Only one small detail troubled him. Intercepted human communications referenced something called Project Carthage. Intelligence officers analyzed the transmissions, but found no evidence of new weapons or fleet movements. The prevailing theory was that it was a bluff, a desperate attempt to make the hegemony hesitate. Humans were known for such deceptions when facing extinction. Zalthuan agreed with this assessment and ordered the campaign to continue. Captain Moravec arrived at Redemption Colony in time to witness its final moments. The orbital stations were already debris. The colony itself was a blackened scar on the planet's surface. She managed to intercept 3 evacuation ships fleeing the system and provided escort as they ran for Earth. In the refugee ships, humans huddled together in spaces meant for cargo, not passengers. Children cried. Adults sat in numb silence. They had lost their homes, their friends, their entire lives, but they were alive. Elena received a priority transmission from Earth Command. When she decrypted it, the message was simple. Operation Hourglass continues. Proceed to Vale Nebula. Hold for 72 hours. Critical priority. No exceptions. The Vale Nebula. A region of dense gas and radiation where sensors stopped working and navigation became guesswork. There was nothing there worth defending. No colonies, no resources, nothing but empty space hidden behind a cosmic fog. Acknowledged, Elena transmitted back. She did not question the order. She had learned that someone, somewhere, was planning something. Every battle, every desperate stand, every colony that bought hours instead of days, it was all buying time for something. She just wished she knew what. The Indomitable limped toward the Vale Nebula, its crew exhausted and traumatized. Repair teams worked around the clock to patch hull breaches and restore damaged systems. The medical bay overflowed with wounded. Morale was breaking. Elena walked through the ship during the night shift, visiting each section. She spoke to the engineers welding new plates onto the hull. She sat with the wounded in medical, holding hands and listening to their stories. She joined a group of young officers in the mess hall who were staring at their food trays without eating. "Captain," one of them asked, "are we going to win?" Elena could have lied. She could have given them false hope. Instead, she told them the truth. "I don't know," she said quietly. "But I know we're going to fight. And I know every person we save is a victory the Crethians didn't calculate. They think war is mathematics. We're teaching them that humanity doesn't fit their equations." It was not much comfort, but it was honest. 3 days later, Indomitable reached the edge of the Vale Nebula. Elena positioned her ship at the coordinates Earth Command specified and waited. Her sensors showed nothing but cosmic static. Her crew prepared for a battle they did not understand. And somewhere in the depths of the nebula, hidden behind radiation and gas, and the limitations of Krethian technology. Something enormous waited in the darkness. War Primus Zalthun studied the latest intelligence reports with satisfaction. The human fleet was reduced to scattered remnants. Their colonies were pacified or destroyed. Earth itself lay exposed, its defenses inadequate against the coming assault. One final obstacle remained. The UTNS, Indomitable, humanity's most powerful ship, had positioned itself at the edge of the Veil Nebula. Intelligence suggested it was a rallying point for remaining human forces. Zalthun decided to lead the final assault personally. He assembled 200 warships' overwhelming force to ensure quick victory. He would crush the Indomitable, then proceed to Earth and dictate terms of surrender. The hegemony would be complete. Perfect war would achieve perfect victory. The humans would learn their place in the galactic order. He set course for the Veil Nebula, confident in his calculations. The Veil Nebula loomed before the Indomitable like a wall of purple and crimson gas, swirling with radiation that turned sensors into useless static. Captain Elena Moravec had positioned her battered ship exactly where Earth Command specified, at the very edge where space transitioned from clear to chaos. For 72 hours, she held this position while her crew wondered why they were guarding empty space. "Captain, engineering reports complete," Lieutenant Chen said from his station. "We've restored primary weapons to 80% capacity. Shields are holding at 65%. Hull breaches sealed except for Deck 9, Section 4. Elena nodded, studying the tactical display that showed mostly nothing. Behind her, the nebula hid whatever secrets it contained. Ahead, empty space stretched toward the inner colonies and Earth itself. If the Krethians came when they came, this would be humanity's last stand. "How long until we hit 72 hours?" she asked. 16 hours, Captain. 16 hours to hold against whatever the Krethians sent. 16 hours to buy time for a project she did not understand. Elena walked to the viewport and stared into the nebula's depths. "What are you hiding?" she wondered. What was worth sacrificing so many lives to protect? She would learn the answer soon enough. War Primus Zalthun's fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 200 warships, arranged in mathematical precision, surrounding the single human vessel like predators, circling wounded prey. On the command deck of Talon of Dominion, Zalthun studied the tactical display with satisfaction. "One ship," he observed to his staff. "Humanity's greatest vessel, damaged and alone, defending a region of empty space. Analysis? One ship." His intelligence officer consulted data streams. "War Primus, the Veil Nebula, contains no strategic resources. No colonies. Human transmissions suggest they believe something important is hidden there. But our scans detect nothing. Assessment. This is a desperate bluff, meant to waste our time and resources." Zalthun agreed. Humans were emotional creatures. Perhaps they hoped he would commit forces to searching the nebula, while Earth prepared its defenses. A clever attempt, but futile. "Open a channel to the human ship," he ordered. On Indomitable's bridge, the communications officer looked up sharply. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Krethian flagship. It's War Primus Zalthun himself." Elena straightened in her command chair. "Put him through." The alien's face appeared on the view screen, his 4 eyes regarding her with something that might have been pity. His translator rendered his speech in emotionless tones. "Captain Moravec, I have reviewed your service record. You have fought bravely for a hopeless cause. Your losses are 43% of your crew. Your ship is damaged beyond optimal function, and yet you remain, defending emptiness. I offer you terms. Surrender now. Your crew will be treated according to hegemony protocols. Continued resistance serves no purpose." Elena met his gaze without flinching. "War Primus, I appreciate the offer, but I have my orders. I hold this line for 11 more hours. After that, we can discuss terms." Zalthun's mandibles clicked. "Curious. What arrives in 11 hours that you believe will change the mathematics of this engagement? Maybe nothing, Elena said. Maybe everything. I guess we'll both find out. She cut the transmission before he could respond. The attack began 3 minutes later. Crethean vessels closed in a perfect sphere, firing from all angles. Indomitable's shields flared under the assault, energy readings spiking as the defensive screens struggled to disperse incoming fire. Elena's crew responded with desperate efficiency, directing power from non-essential systems to keep the shields active. Return fire, all batteries, Elena commanded. Target their formation leaders. Make them think twice about closing distance. Indomitable's railguns spoke, hurling slugs of metal at relativistic speeds into Crethean shields. 3 enemy vessels took critical damage and fell back. It was a minor victory that changed nothing. The mathematics were clear. 1 against 200 was not a battle. It was an execution. But Elena had not come here to win. She had come here to buy time. Hull breach on Deck 4. Damage control reported. Sealing emergency bulkheads. Casualties unknown. Shields down to 40%. Tactical added. Power reserves depleting faster than estimated. Elena checked the chronometer. 10 hours and 40 minutes remaining. She had to hold for 10 hours and 40 minutes. It might as well have been 10 years. All non-essential crew to escape pods, she ordered quietly. Stand by for evacuation order. Captain, we're not leaving. Lieutenant Chen began. That wasn't a request, Lieutenant. When I give the word, you will evacuate this ship. Understood? Chen's face showed anguish, but he nodded. Around the bridge, crew members exchanged glances but returned to their duties. If these were their final hours, they would serve them well. The battle raged. Indomitable fought like a cornered animal, twisting and diving through 3-dimensional space, using every trick human naval doctrine had developed. Elena's tactical instincts kept them alive minutes longer than Crethean calculations predicted. But shields were failing. Weapons were overheating. The end was mathematical and inevitable. War Primus Zalthun watched the human ship's death throes with professional appreciation. The captain fought well. Her crew exhibited remarkable coordination despite facing certain doom, but emotion and skill could not overcome superior numbers. In approximately 30 minutes, the Indomitable would be destroyed, and the path to Earth would be clear. His communications officer interrupted his thoughts. War Primus. Unusual reading. A transmission from Earth Command to the human ship. Very brief. Shall I decrypt? Display it. The message appeared on his screen. Carthage has arrived. Clear the field. Carthage. That word again, from the intercepted communications. Zalthun felt a small twinge of unease. Intensify sensor sweeps of the nebula. Full spectrum analysis. War Primus. The nebula prevents effective scanning. I am aware of the limitations. Scan anyway. On Indomitable's bridge. Elena read the message 3 times before she believed it. Then she started laughing. It was not happy laughter. It was the laugh of someone who had just realized the cosmic joke they had been part of. All crew, immediate evacuation, she ordered. This is not a drill. All hands to escape pods. Launch immediately and burn away from the nebula at maximum velocity. Lieutenant Chen, you have the bridge. Get them out. Captain, what about you? I need to make sure something sees this, Elena said, her eyes on the nebula. Now go. That's an order. Chen hesitated 1 more second, then saluted and herded the bridge crew toward the evacuation routes. Within minutes, escape pods began launching from Indomitable's hull, scattering in all directions like dandelion seeds. Zalthun observed the evacuation with confusion. They are abandoning their ship, but we have not disabled it. Analysis? Before his officers could respond, the nebula changed. Something vast moved in the swirling gas. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear. Crethean sensors that had shown only static suddenly screamed warnings as they detected a massive gravity well emerging from the nebula's heart. And then it appeared. The UTNS Carthage emerged from the Veil Nebula like a god rising from the deep. It was not a ship. It was a statement. 12 kilometers of human engineering and fury, bristling with weapon systems that should not exist. Its hull adorned with the words painted in letters 300 meters high, for new harmony. Every sensor on every Crethean ship locked onto the impossible vessel. Tactical computers tried to calculate its capabilities and returned error messages. Nothing that large should be able to move. Nothing that massive should be able to function. The mathematics said it was impossible. Humanity had built it anyway. War Primus Zalthun stared at the tactical display. And for the first time in his 90-year military career, he felt his confidence waver. All those battles, all those desperate human stands, all that time they were buying, they had been stalling. The Carthage's weapons powered up, and space itself seemed to hold its breath. The UTNS Carthage hung in space like a monument to human stubbornness. On its command deck, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen stood before a viewport that stretched 30 meters wide, watching the Crethean fleet with cold eyes. Around him, 300 officers and crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. No panic, no fear, just focus, tactical. "Give me the count," Chen ordered. 200 enemy vessels, Admiral. Standard Crethean battle formation. The Indomitable is clear. All escape pods away. We have free engagement. Chen nodded. Behind him, holographic displays showed the battle space in 3 dimensions. The Crethean fleet surrounded the Carthage in a perfect sphere, exactly as their doctrine dictated. They were setting up for a coordinated strike, intending to focus fire from all angles simultaneously. It was mathematically sound. It was tactically perfect. It was also exactly what Chen had expected. Communications, open a channel. All frequencies. I want every ship in this fleet, and every council member, back home, to hear this. The communications officer worked her controls. "Channel open, Admiral. You're broadcasting." Chen took a breath, thinking of new harmony, of prospect, of redemption, and Veil, and all the other colonies that had burned while humanity bought time. Then he spoke. "War Primus Zalthun, you claim to be masters of war. You calculated our losses and found them acceptable. You destroyed our colonies with mathematics and precision. Now let me show you what humanity built while you were counting your victories." He nodded to his tactical officer. Fire. The Carthage's opening salvo rewrote Crethean understanding of warfare. Railguns, the size of buildings, launched tungsten slugs at 40% the speed of light. Missile pods deployed thousands of autonomous hunter-killers, each one smarter than a Crethean fighter. Point defense grids created walls of coherent energy that could vaporize incoming fire. And the main batteries, the weapons that had taken 20 years to develop, unleashed beams of concentrated plasma that burned through Crethean shields like they were tissue paper. 40 Crethean ships died in the first 6 seconds. War Primus Zalthuan watched his tactical display dissolve into chaos. The perfect sphere formation broke apart as ships desperately tried to evade fire that moved too fast to dodge. His damage reports scrolled faster than he could read them. 13 ships destroyed. 19. 27. 33. Return fire. All vessels, focus on the central target. Execute formation Omega-7. He was shouting now. His carefully maintained composure shattered. The Crethean fleet fired back. Thousands of plasma bolts and missiles converged on the Carthage from every angle. It should have been devastating. The ship was massive, but surely not invulnerable. The mathematics said concentrated fire would penetrate its shields and cripple its systems. The mathematics were wrong. The Carthage's point defense grid intercepted 98% of incoming fire. The remaining 2% splashed harmlessly against shields that operated on principles the Cretheans had not yet discovered. The massive ship did not even slow down. War Primus, Our weapons are ineffective, his tactical officer reported, voice high with panic. Their shield technology, it's beyond our understanding, Zalthun forced himself to think. This was wrong. All of it. Ships that size should not be this maneuverable. Shields should not be this powerful. Weapons should not fire this fast. The humans had broken every rule of warfare the hegemony had established over 3,000 years. Or perhaps they had simply never agreed to follow those rules in the first place. All ships, scatter formation Delta, he ordered. Create distance and regroup. But the Carthage was not alone. The Indomitable, battered but still functional, swooped back into the fight. Captain Elena Moravec had not evacuated with her crew. She had stayed behind with a skeleton team of volunteers, and now her damaged ship danced through the battle space like a knife fighter beside a sledgehammer. Target those ships trying to escape, Elena ordered. Cut off their retreat. Her railguns found fleeing Crethian vessels and punched through their engines. Her remaining missiles chased down scouts trying to slip away to report what they had seen. The Indomitable was dying, her systems failing one by one, but she would complete her mission. Admiral Chen watched the smaller ship's efforts with grim approval. Tactical, coordinate with Indomitable. She knows their fleet doctrine better than anyone. Let her guide our targeting. The battle became a lesson in human warfare. Where Crethians calculated acceptable losses, humans had designed every system with redundancy and overkill. Where Crethians optimized for efficiency, humans had built for overwhelming power. And where Crethians fought with mathematical precision, humans fought with something the hegemony had bred out of themselves centuries ago. Rage. Every weapon on the Carthage seemed designed not just to destroy but to terrify. Railgun slugs moved so fast they created visible distortions in space. Missiles broke apart into dozens of submunitions that hunted their targets with machine intelligence. Energy weapons burned with such intensity that they left afterimages on optical sensors. This was not warfare. This was a message. War Primus Zalthun realized he was losing. The word felt foreign in his mind. Crethians did not lose. They calculated. They optimized. They achieved victory through perfect strategy and superior numbers. But none of his calculations had accounted for enemies who would sacrifice everything, their colonies, their people, their pride, just to buy time to build one impossible answer. War Primus, we've lost 94 ships, his executive officer reported, his voice hollow. 43 more are critically damaged. Recommend immediate retreat. Retreat. Another foreign word. But Zalthun looked at the tactical display and saw the mathematical truth. If he stayed, his entire fleet would be destroyed. If he retreated, he could save perhaps 30% of his forces. The mathematics were finally clear. For the first time in his life, the acceptable losses were his own. All ships, emergency jump to rally point Sigma, he ordered. Disengage and scatter. We regroup at the fallback position. Ships began disappearing in flashes of hyperspace as they fled the battle. Some did not make it. Destroyed by the Carthage's targeting systems before they could jump. Others jumped with critical damage and would barely survive the journey. Of 200 ships, 73 escaped. War Primus Zalthun was among them. But as his ship entered hyperspace, he took one last look at the Carthage through the view screen. The massive ship hung in space, surrounded by debris and escape pods and the broken remains of Crethian perfection. It did not pursue. It simply held position. Its weapon ports, still glowing with ready power. A transmission came through on all frequencies. Admiral Chen's voice was calm and measured. To the Galactic Council and all member species, you wanted to see how humans make war. Now you know. We don't fight for conquest. We don't calculate acceptable losses. We fight to protect what we love, and when you threaten that, we will build impossibilities and patience until we can show you exactly what happens when you push humanity too far. This was the opening act. Consider carefully before there's a second one. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Elena Moravec sat in her damaged command chair, and allowed herself a small smile. Her ship was dying around her, systems failing one by one. But they had done it. They had bought enough time. They had held the line. "Captain, the Carthage is offering us a tow," Lieutenant Chen reported, "and a full crew complement to help with repairs." "Tell them we accept," Elena said quietly. "And tell Admiral Chen. Tell him New Harmony wasn't for nothing." In the Crethean War Academy, emergency meetings convened. Intelligence officers scrambled to analyze the battle data. Military theorists argued over what had gone wrong, but War Primus Zalthun sat alone in his quarters, staring at a display showing the Carthage. He had spent 90 years studying war. He had conquered species and civilizations. He had never lost a battle. Now he understood the difference between never losing and actually winning. The humans had lost every battle until the one that mattered. And in that one battle, they had shattered 3,000 years of Crethean military doctrine. He began writing his report to the High Command. It would be the hardest document he had ever composed, because he would have to tell them the truth. They were not the masters of war they believed themselves to be. They had just never met anyone desperate enough to prove them wrong. News of the Veil Nebula spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. In council chambers and military academies, on trade stations and colony worlds, every species heard the same impossible story. The Crethean hegemony, undefeated for 3,000 years, had been routed by a single human ship. The recordings played on every screen, the Carthage emerging from the nebula. The devastating firepower, the Crethean fleet scattering in panic. Species that had accepted hegemony rule without question began asking dangerous questions. Species considering resistance suddenly had hope. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. War Primus Zalthun stood before the council, but this time he was not making demands. He was making a report. His 4 arms hung at his sides, his posture lacking its usual confidence. Around the chamber, representatives from 47 species watched him with expressions ranging from shock to barely concealed satisfaction. "The battle data has been verified," Zalthun said, his translator rendering his words in flat tones. "The human vessel designated Carthage possesses technology significantly beyond our current capabilities. Our tactical models failed to account for their strategic patience. Our assessment of their military capacity was incomplete." The Vexulan ambassador spoke from his methane tank. "War Primus, you assured this council that humanity would be pacified within 30 cycles. You cited your perfect war doctrine. You calculated their losses as acceptable. What changed?" Zalthun's mandibles clicked slowly. "We calculated what we could see. We did not calculate what they were hiding." On Earth, deep beneath Geneva, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen watched the council proceedings with his senior staff. Around the conference table sat the architects of Project Carthage, engineers, scientists, strategists, and survivors of the colony attacks. "The hegemony is requesting negotiation," his intelligence chief reported. "Not surrender. They're too proud for that. But they're using the word ceasefire in their communications. That's unprecedented." Chen nodded slowly. "What about the other dreadnoughts? Hannibal, Scipio, and Caesar are completing their shakedown runs. All systems optimal. They'll be ready for deployment within 2 weeks if needed." Across the table, a young captain asked the question everyone was thinking. "Admiral, we have 4 dreadnoughts. The hegemony has thousands of ships. Did we actually win? Or just surprise them?" Chen stood and walked to the window, overlooking the construction bays. Outside, more ships were being built. Not dreadnoughts, those took decades to construct. But cruisers and destroyers incorporating the new technology. Humanity was not stopping with Carthage. "We didn't need to win every battle," Chen said quietly. "We needed to show them that fighting us costs more than they're willing to pay. Every species the hegemony conquered, they calculated acceptable losses and moved on. But we showed them that humans don't accept those calculations. We make the war unacceptable." In the reconstructed colony of New Harmony, survivors watched the council proceedings on public screens. The settlement was small now, temporary shelters, and prefabricated buildings where grand cities once stood. But people were returning, rebuilding. Among them, a young girl asked her mother, "Did we win?" Her mother, who had survived the orbital bombardment by hiding in a basement, thought carefully before answering. "We're still here. That's what winning looks like." The negotiation took place on a neutral station between human and Krethian space. Admiral Chen led the human delegation. War Primus Zal Thun led the hegemony representatives. They met in a simple conference room with a viewport showing the stars. Zal Thun spoke first. "Admiral Chen, I have studied your military history. Your greatest wars were fought between human nations. Millions died. You understand loss. We understand survival." Chen replied, "Every human alive today is descended from survivors. Our planet tried to kill us with ice ages and predators and diseases. We survived. Then we tried to kill each other. We survived that too. You thought you could add yourselves to the list of things that would destroy humanity. You thought wrong." 1. "Your dreadnoughts are impressive," Zalthuan continued. "But 4 ships cannot conquer an empire. The mathematics remain. We have thousands of vessels." Chen smiled without humor. "War Primus, you're still thinking like a Krethian. You're calculating force ratios and acceptable losses. Let me explain human mathematics. We have 4 dreadnoughts now. In 5 years, we'll have 40. In 10 years, 400. Because while you were conquering species, we were building shipyards inside nebulas where your sensors can't see. We were developing technology in hidden research stations. We were preparing for the day someone would try to make us extinct." He leaned forward. "You wanted to be masters of war. We just wanted to be left alone. But you couldn't allow that. So we showed you that humanity has been fighting for survival since we learned to stand upright. We're very, very good at it." The room fell silent. Finally, Zalthun spoke again, his voice different now, quieter. "What are your terms?" "Ceasefire," Chen said immediately. "Permanent. Your forces withdraw from all human space. You recognize our sovereignty. You leave us alone. In return, we don't build 500 more dreadnoughts and start paying back what you did to New Harmony. The High Command will not accept being dictated to. Then they can fight us," Chen interrupted. "And every battle will cost them more ships, more resources, more time. And while they fight us, all those other species you conquered will start wondering if they could do the same thing. Is that the mathematics you want, War Primus?" Zalthun was silent for a long time. Then he clicked his mandibles in what humans had learned was agreement. "I will recommend your terms to the High Command." 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council received formal notification. The Krethian hegemony and the United Terran Republic had reached a ceasefire agreement. Human borders were now inviolate. The hegemony would not expand into human space. In return, humanity would not deploy additional dreadnoughts into hegemony territory. The Council voted to recognize the agreement. No one mentioned that they had little choice. The balance of power had shifted. Captain Elena Moravec stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now fully repaired and upgraded with new technology developed for the Carthage. Her old ship felt new again, stronger, ready for whatever came next. A young ensign approached her, fresh from the academy. "Captain, permission to speak freely?" "Granted. Did we really win?" "The hegemony is still out there. They're still powerful. They still have thousands of ships." Elena looked at the view screen showing the stars. "Ensign, let me tell you what I learned. Winning doesn't mean the enemy is gone. It means they know better than to fight you again. The Krethians thought war was mathematics. We taught them that some equations don't balance. We showed them that humanity's survival instinct is stronger than their calculations. She turned to face the young officer. We lost colonies. We lost ships. We lost people we cared about. But we're still here. And now everyone knows that if you threaten humanity, we will sacrifice everything to build the impossible just to prove you wrong. That's not just winning. That's making sure they never try again. In the Crethean War Academy, students studied a new case file. Battle designation: Vale Nebula. Casualty count: unacceptable. Outcome: strategic defeat. At the bottom of the file, a new entry appeared in the Hegemony's species database. Species 48, humans. Classification: dangerous. Strategic assessment: do not engage. Humans do not fight for conquest. They fight for survival. They possess patience to plan across generations. They possess stubbornness to sacrifice everything for eventual victory. They possess technology hidden in locations our sensors cannot penetrate. They claim no mastery of war. They claim only the right to exist. But any species that threatens that right should expect consequences beyond calculation. Recommendation: avoid conflict. Endo: they are not masters of war. They are masters of survival. And in the end, that is more dangerous. War Primus Zalthun retired from military service. In his final report, he wrote, "I fought them because I believed we were superior. I lost because they fought for something more important than superiority. They fought for home, for family, for the right to exist without bowing to anyone. And they were willing to lose everything except that right. In 3,000 years, we never faced an enemy like that. I pray we never do again." On Earth, in Geneva, Admiral Chen attended a ceremony honoring the fallen from New Harmony, Prospect, Vale, and Redemption. Thousands gathered to remember those who had died buying time for Carthage to be completed. The names were read aloud, one by one, while humans stood in silence. When the ceremony ended, a reporter asked Chen the question everyone wondered. "Admiral, was it worth it? All those lives, all that sacrifice, just to build 4 ships?" Chen looked at the memorial wall, covered with names of the dead. "Those 4 ships mean my grandchildren will grow up free. They'll grow up without knowing what it's like to be conquered. They'll know their ancestors fought and died so they could live without fear." The reporter had no answer. Across the galaxy, humanity began to build. Not just ships, but a future. They expanded carefully, always watching, always prepared. The Carthage and her sister ships patrolled human space, reminders of what happened when someone tried to write humanity's ending. The Crethean hegemony turned its attention to other borders, other conquests. But human space remained untouched. A bubble of sovereignty in the galactic order, protected by 4 massive ships, and the memory of what happens when you underestimate human desperation. And on colony worlds across human space, in schools and homes, parents told their children the story of how humanity survived. How they lost battles, but won the war. How they proved that sometimes the species that claims no mastery of anything is the one you should fear the most. Because in the end, there are no true masters of war. There are only survivors, and nobody survives like humans.